gone for a long time. I haven't uploaded a video for almost 3 months. I got some stories to tell you guys. I've been all over the place. I've been traveling a lot. I've got a bunch of things to tell you about. I got some big news for you. But before we get into all that, I got another Harley Davidson bad boy. I'm going to change the Vance & Hines exhausts on the bike. I actually really like them on here. I'm going to put these on my Fat Boy. And the reason is I really want a 2-in-1 pipe on this bike. This thing sounds really great. It runs great the way it is, but I've got a nice stainless 2-in-1 exhaust from Milwaukee 8. Now the M8 pipe is not compatible with the Harley Davidson EVO, but I'm going to make it work. I'm going to show you how. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the Vance & Hines pipe. I'm going to set this Milwaukee 8 pipe up here. And what I have to do is I'm going to have to change these flanges, I'm pretty sure. The bolt spread looks different. And I have to change these flange stops here. And I'm probably also going to have to change the angle a little bit. There's no way the ports can be in exactly the same spot at the same angles for these heads from the M8 to the EVO. So I'm going to remove this pipe. I'm going to line this pipe up here. I'm not crazy about this dip either. I may remove this dip from the pipe. I'm not quite sure yet. But I'm gonna line it up and see how it looks. And I'm gonna show you how, even though something may not be for a certain application or may not fit, where there's a will, there's a way, you make it work. So I need this mount to go with the Vance & Hines pipes on my Fat Boy. Now the M8 engine is a rubber mounted engine, so the rear pipe mount for that's probably going to come off the transmission somewhere, and it has a different transmission than this 5-speed. That M8 6-speed is different, so I'm probably going to have to make a rear mount for that pipe to mount it either to the gearbox or to the frame here where they would traditionally mount. But I'll get it all lined up first. See, I'm assuming that pipe is going to want to run straight, and I kind of want to run it at an angle, but I'm dealing with this passenger peg here, which I want to keep. So I'm going to line it all up, see how it fits, and kind of go with the flow. You know, I don't have any plan here, except the plan is to be successful, which is what it always is. Just be a success at it, which I know I will. And it'll look great, sound great, add a little bit of performance to the bike, and a little bit of a modern look to a 30-year-old motorcycle. So here's my first shot here at putting this pipe on. I'll tell you right now that the spread between these exhaust flanges is probably about 4 or 5 inches different, and the angle is way different. These pipes go in much straighter to the head, whereas the EVO exhaust port comes out this way. The M8 pump, the M8 port comes out almost 90 degrees to the center line of the bike. So I'm gonna have to definitely cut and change these angles, but you can kind of get a sense for what I'm dealing with here. And the pipe would normally ride like this, and what I'm gonna do is try and rock it up like this so it goes up at an angle. And I'm probably just gonna take this dip out of it because it's gonna have a very funny line dropping below the frame here. So I'm definitely gonna have to change this, but I'm not worried about any of it. I got cutters, I got welders, that's why they call it choppers. But anyhow, I'm gonna start to figure this out. The difficult The most difficult pipe to fit is going to be the rear pipe, so I'm going to work there first and try and work from there, and then I can straighten this front pipe out. Because it doesn't have these multiple bends and it's longer, it gives me more room to correct myself and work up here. So I'm going to do the rear header pipe first and then work on the front pipe. So here's how this is going to go. I'm going to go ahead and pull this spring off the front head pipe and just completely remove it from the equation. That's going to allow me to focus on the rear pipe without all this weight banging around. It's going to just give me a lot of mobility. Okay, now that I've got the front head pipe off, I'm going to figure out how to cut an angle and get this rear head pipe in here and get that kind of upward angle that I want for the exhaust. I might even want to slide this back a little bit, but get it back there, run it at an angle where my pipes are, where my collector is running it up a little bit of an angle, and I can still get this rear head pipe into my exhaust port for a good connection. I know I've showed you this trick before, but I take a piece of masking tape. I'm going to cut right here in the bend because I was telling you the angle coming out of the head and the horizontal plane is way different. So by cutting in the horizontal plane here, I can rotate this pipe in this respect and get these ports turned. And I'm also going to probably have to cut it somewhere in here and change this angle too. I'm going to do one at a time. And I use my tape just to kind of get a straight cut line through this curve. It's never going to be perfect, but it's going to give me a really good cut line. Just using a good visual here, I can trim and set it up the way I need to, and just use a visual to be pretty certain that I've got a straight line here with the tape. And then I just take my Milwaukee Inkzol pen and mark my cut line. Just so as I work around the pipe, it lets me know that I'm staying pretty steady. And peel my tape back. You can see my line there. And I come in and cut. I want to take a look at these pipes. There's some really heavy crimping action happening in these pipes, and they were bent more than usual. Usually they stay pretty round and get a little bit of an elliptical shape to them, but these are pretty bad. So it's going to cause me a little bit of trouble in the welding, but I'll overcome it just like I do with everything else. But I just want to point that out to you, so when you see me setting it up to weld, you don't think I'm just struggling for no reason. This is going to cause me some headaches. I didn't expect to find this, but no worries. I'll get through it. This is the M8 header pipe, and this flange stop here is too big around and too long for my flange to connect to the head on the EVO engine. This is what an EVO flange looks like. So, but if I just cut this off, my pipe is going to be too short. Now this is what the EVO flange looks like. This is just a piece of stainless exhaust pipe that I have. And then this is a weld-on flange that I got from a buddy years ago. Now the pipe is stainless steel. The flange is mild steel, but it doesn't matter. You're never gonna see the flange. It's just gonna get rusty up in there in the exhaust port and covered in carbon anyhow, so you won't see it, but it doesn't matter. You can weld these, you can weld mild steel to stainless steel, no problem. So that's not gonna be an issue. So what I'm gonna do is weld this on here, cut this pipe, and use this as an extension to get my bend out further away from the engine so I can clear my gearbox. I know you can't see a lot of this. You can't envision it right now, but as I get the pipe together, it'll kind of make sense. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started welding this, and we'll take it from here. Here's my new headpiece that's gonna go up in the engine here. And I can show you that this exhaust flange won't slip over this piece, but it will slip right over this piece. That's why I had to do that. And I'm just gonna go ahead and put my clip in and install like that. And then that's how it fastens to the head. So that's why I had to go ahead and do that little operation right there. This M8 exhaust flange doesn't even fit in here between the exhaust port and the frame, so it was never gonna work, so I'm just gonna throw it away. Okay, now I don't know that this length is correct, but if anything, it's gonna be long, but I needed to add some length in here, so now I'm gonna go ahead and be able to figure out how to connect everything else in here and get this pipe to snake out between this transmission and engine and out underneath that passenger peg, which is kind of my obstacles that I have to work around. Here's my rear header looking from the port all the way back. So I've got the first 3 sections tacked together. Now I've got this section fit here, and I'm marked with my Sharpie. I got a nice tight seam there. I'm gonna go ahead and TIG weld this all together and put it back on the bike, and that should get my collector lined up where I want it, and I can start working the front pipe to this one. There's the rear header. It was a 1-piece pipe, now it's a 4-piece pipe. The piece I extended to come right out of the port. And then these are the original pieces of the pipe that I cut and just had to rotate relative to each other here and rotate to each other relative here to get the angle I want. And now I've got that pipe coming out of the head, getting it in between the cam cover and the transmission cover, and also getting it out wide enough to be out past the transmission cover. Now I'm gonna go ahead and install the collector and let you see. And also you notice there's my frame line on the bottom and this pipe's angled up. I told you I wanted to angle the pipe up. It's gonna give it a really aggressive look. So I'm gonna go ahead now and try and add the collector. This is in there tight, it's just tacked together. I always, just so you know this, I always tack each joint at 3 points. 2 points just simply isn't enough, so I always tack each joint at 3 points. That allows me to really kind of work with what I got. So here's my collector. I feel like I'm probably all the way on there, but you can see now I'm coming right up underneath right up under the pipe here, which is what I want. And I can always rotate a little bit from the head. See, the head will allow me to move where I want to be. So I'm just below that peg, which is what I need. I'm coming out a little bit wide, which is the way the collector's weld on. I can always recut this weld and go back straighter if I want, if I feel like it's too wide. But when your leg's on the ground, you know, your leg's gonna be down here, not back here. So I'm not really worried about contacting the pipe at all. So I'm actually kind of glad that it's coming out wide. It's got a good look to it. And again, you can see that this has an upward sweep to it, which is a really nice contrast to the soft tail lines that come down this way. You kind of got crossing lines. So I'm real happy so far with how I have this. And now the challenge is going to be to get the front pipe on there, which is a lot easier than the back pipe because the bends aren't as extreme, first of all, and I've got a lot of length to work with. That length makes it really smooth and easy for me. I'm going to go ahead and leave these tacked for now until I have everything the way I want it. Once I get the front pipe tacked together, then I'll come back and finish weld everything. Now to tie in my front pipe to the rear pipe, obviously the front pipe has to wind up right here and begin here. If I put this pipe in the way that it's made, you can see there's no way it's going to line up, and that's again because I told you this port needs to change direction. The port on the M8 comes straight out, and on the EVO it angles forward toward the front of the bike, so it's going to twist the whole pipe this way. The first thing I'm going to do is cut this exhaust flange stop off because it doesn't fit and I can't use it. So I'll cut that off. I'm going to have to cut the pipe probably about here to rotate this around and get my angle right. And then I'm going to have to rework this whole thing. I don't like this double bend here at all. If I left the pipe the way it is, I don't like the way it dips down here to make its way into the collector. I'm going to eliminate this bend here for sure and have it come a straight bend right off the front pipe right into the collector. It's going to look way better. The first thing I really need to do is get the header up into the exhaust port and get that part fastened and work my way back into the collector here. I've got that collector probably rocked up at a 5-degree angle. So if I put a straight piece of pipe in there, it really shows you the angle of that collector. But I don't really want to drop down and leave this kind of gap between the engine. You want to tighten this gap up here and have this pipe kind of bend up here and come right up in this little area. It's going to give it a really more of a performance race look, which is kind of what I'm going for with this. So I'll pull this straight section out. Now this is where the original pipe was going to go. You see how far it dips down. That just would look horrible for me to use that. So what I'm leaning for is turning this around and coming up this way. And I'll just go ahead and remove that spring clip and weld it on the back side here later. And now I've got a much better look, a more natural look. These pipes diverge a little bit here at the collector. And I'll just bring it right back up in here. Here's my head pipe with the flange stop cut off, and you can kind of see they're starting to come together a little bit. I'm definitely gonna have to do some cutting and manipulating, but I'm getting there. I got my flange stop welded on the front head pipe now. And there's really no need for me to bolt that in. I can get up in the port here and see where I'm gonna sit naturally. It's a tight fit here between the frame and the head. So you definitely always gotta get that right so you can get the pipe in and out. And then you need to squeeze between the foot control, the oil filter, and the cam cover here. So I'm pretty close. You can see them probably an inch long, maybe 1.5 inches long right here. And I need to twist and turn this bend back. I don't know that I'm going to use this bend yet, but I need to twist and turn that bend back. So I like to have, here you can see I kind of have 4 roughly equal sections where my weld cuts are made. So, you know, I can cut here and twist, I can cut here and twist. I'm going to cut right around here in the middle so that the length of my pipes between the welds seems kind of equal. It's just a better look. If you think, you probably wouldn't think of it, but once you see it, you almost don't notice it. But if it's done wrong, it kind of shows up. You're like, oh, that looks kind of wonky. So I'm going to go ahead and cut around right here in the middle of the pipe and take some length out of this and do my twist. There you go. I got the first 2 pieces of my front header welded together. Tacked right together there in the middle. And you can see how this pipe's really starting to come together. Got a nice racy look to it. Something totally different from what I've been doing with these bad boys for a while. Now all I've got to do is weld a section or 2 of pipe in between that front header and that collector. I've got my collector raked up at the angle I was talking to you about in the beginning, which gives it a really aggressive look. This is gonna look fantastic when it's done. Well, I got the head pipe all pieced together. I ended up going with the straight line along the bottom here to line up with the frame. All I gotta really do is slide the collector on, see if I can get it to go in there. You know, this is, may want to bind up a little bit, but. A couple details here. I cut the pipe a little short when I needed to make this joint here. And this is the kind of the measurement. It was about 3/4 of an inch short. This is a slip fit that slips inside the collector, so I just went ahead and added 3/4 of an inch to the end of the pipe. Right now, I need to weld this spring clip on before I do anything else. And I just used a nut to hold it down so I can tack weld it on. Then I can finish up my welds and go ahead and get this pipe finished up. All right, I got the old Miller Dynasty 300DX set on the pulsar. So I have right now, PPS is pulse per second, 3 pulses per second. My peak current is 35 amps. My minimum current is 10 amps. I'm gonna try and do as much fusion welding as I can here. They've got real nice seams. If I have to use filler rod, I will. But with the thing set up the way I have it, as long as the pipe doesn't start warp while I'm welding, I should be able to run around with just the fusion weld, burn this base metal together. I made a mount to mount the pipe to the rear passenger peg stud. There's the bad boy with the stainless 2-in-1 pipe on it. You see the rear mount I was just making. I got everything all welded up. Now I'm ready to start it and see how it sounds. I can't wait to hear it. All right, let's see how it sounds when I fire it up. Harley Davidson Bad Boy, 1996. I picked it up in Milwaukee on my way to Sturgis, and it came mostly like this. It came with the Boyd Coddington wheels, the Boyd Coddington billet aluminum swing arm, just so hard to find. It had different handlebars on it, had different tanks on it. It had a different seat and a different set of pipes, but I'm going to show you the pipes today. This is a 2-in-1 performance stainless steel exhaust for a Milwaukee 8. And I repurposed this exhaust to fit a Harley Davidson EVO engine. You can do it for a twin cam too.